Farmweek is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, Mississippi farmers need to be on the lookout for soybean diseases as the crop enters the last half of August.
Mississippi's Ag Commissioner Cindy Hyde-Smith says she's making sure other state officials know the importance of agriculture to the state's economy.
In today's Southern Gardening, we're going to show you how to look closer to see the true beauty of flowers.
In the markets, corn and soybean prices remain strong as the outlook for profits in pork looks weak.
In the feature segment, we all enjoy picking up vegetables in the store, but most of those require hand labor to harvest them. Some farmers in California say a guest worker program is needed because the number of farm workers is growing smaller.
We have a government that can't seem to get together an immigration reform plan, and we desperately need that. If we had a law here in California like Arizona, our fresh fruit and vegetable industry would be dead.
Hey everyone, I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
Soybean rust has been located in 2 more counties in Mississippi.
Leighton, the disease was detected in a sentinel plot near Vicksburg and a commercial soybean field in Walthall County. Now that's a total of 8 Mississippi counties now. Young soybeans could be susceptible to the disease. Plant pathologist Tom Allen with the Mississippi State University Extension Service says growers should also be on the lookout for frog eye leaf spot.
I monitor soybeans in the state of Mississippi for any potentially yield-limiting diseases. One of those is frog eye leaf spot, which can be potentially yield-limiting if infecting soybean plants at earlier growth stages, and in some cases can require a fungicide application. That is of potential concern to Mississippi soybean farmers simply due to the fact that fungus that causes frog eye leaf spot, Cercospora saugina, has been determined to be resistant to the strobilurin class of fungicides, which had been the majority of the fungicide suggestions for management, as well as limiting any of that yield loss that could have occurred. We are continuing to monitor for any potential resistance that has developed to the strobilurin class of fungicides within Mississippi. Leaves have been sent off to the University of Illinois, where the majority of that work is being done by Dr. Carl Bradley. And at present, no fungicide resistance has been detected within the population of Cercospora saugina in the state of Mississippi. That's something that we continue to monitor for the rest of 2012 as well as the future.
Soybean disease scouting and research in Mississippi is supported in part by growers through the Mississippi Soybean Promotion Board. Mississippi cattle producers found out recently about some native grasses that can stand up to the intense heat and periods of drought in the South. Researchers and specialists from Mississippi State University and the University of Tennessee discussed the benefits of these native forages at the Native Grass and Cattle Field Day at Prairie. Native grasses can also have wildlife benefits. Farm Week's Amy Taylor reports.
Many states in the Midwest rely almost exclusively on native grasses for cattle forage systems, but that hasn't necessarily been the case for the Southeast. Coordinator for the University of Tennessee Center for Native Grasslands Management, Pat Kaiser, and Mississippi Agriculture and Forestry Experiment Station Associate Director Wes Berger explained the desirable attributes of grasses like big blue stem, little blue stem, Indian grass, and switchgrass.
They're real low input. They don't require a lot of fertilizer, lime, or herbicides necessarily. They're high yielding. We produce 4 or 5 tons of forage per acre. And also, we see great gains from our beef cattle during the summer on these grasses in the neighborhood of 2 pounds of gain per day.
Native grasses have deep root structure, and so they, in their root zone, sequester a lot of below ground soil carbon. They also provide excellent habitat for a whole suite of native pollinators, bees and butterflies. They also provide habitat for grassland birds like northern bobwhite, dick thistle, grasshopper sparrows, species that are in regional decline.
In addition, it has been discovered that native grasses can be used during periods when exotic improved grasses like Bermuda grass, fescue, and ryegrass don't perform well. From Prairie, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
The State Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce said last week she thinks more ag-related jobs can be developed with a closer relationship between her office and the Mississippi Development Authority. Cindy Hyde-Smith told an audience at the Agronomic Row Crops Field Day in Verona that she recently met with MDA's new Executive Director, Brent Christensen. Hyde-Smith says she made it clear to Christensen how important agriculture is to Mississippi.
I said in the past, I just don't feel like there was ever a bridge between MDA and the Department of Agriculture, and that's the bridge that I want to build starting out as your new commissioner. It should be just as important to bring ag jobs into this state, capitalize on what we're already doing very well, as it is any other job. And I want somebody over at MDA that is solely dedicated to agriculture. A lot of folks over there wear a lot of hats, but there's no one that is my ag go-to person, and economic creation and economic development is what really excites me about this job.
Cindy Hyde-Smith was the keynote speaker at the Row Crops Field Day at the North Mississippi Research and Extension Center.
Well, sometimes we let color distract us when we look at flowers. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman tells us to look a little closer.
Being a horticulturist means I really enjoy plants. Let's take a close look at some of the marvelous flowers found in our landscapes and gardens. In an earlier Southern Gardening segment, we enjoyed the delicate blue flowers of the aptly named blue butterfly plant. In this segment, I would like to share some other interesting flowers. One of the most unique flowers I know belongs to the Mississippi medallion winner yellow shrimp plant and the related red shrimp plant. The plant begins blooming by sending up colorful 4 to 5 inch spikes, which are very long lasting. Many think this is the flower, but in reality it is a modified flower called a bract. The flowers are the white tubular structures that emerge from the bract. Another plant having interesting flowers is Terenia, commonly called wishbone flower. The stamens, which contain the yellow pollen grains, form a structure that resembles a wishbone. Bees enter the flower in search of nectar and pick up and transfer the pollen. Perhaps the most interesting flowers belong to the container and basket plant favorite begonia. Begonia are monoecious plants, which have separate male and female flowers on the same plant. The 4-petal male flowers have numerous stamens containing the pollen. The 5-petal female flowers have 2 to 4 twisted structures called stigma, which receive the pollen grains. We all enjoy the flowering plants in our landscapes, but taking a closer look reveals an entirely different perspective on the beauty of flowers. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says that most cameras now have settings which can help you to get close-up pictures of your flowers, and then you can enjoy them again this winter. In the feature segment today, farm labor. Some vegetable and fruit farmers support the establishment of a guest worker program. They say the number of hand laborers is declining already, and they support a national solution. Time now for the markets with Layton, and you say a new cattle on feed update is out.
That's right, Artis. Many analysts expected the numbers to reflect a big year-to-year drop in placements. Now this week in the markets, crops continue to decrease in size. The low Mississippi River slows grain shipments, as analysts say some hog liquidation is inevitable. The USDA has made substantial cuts to the 2012 corn and bean crops for the second month in a row. In the week since the August numbers were released, Extension Ag economist Dr. John Michael Riley has been doing some analysis of the new report. So John Michael, is it pretty much more of the same in this latest crop report?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, especially given what we saw with the July crop report and supply and demand report, the reduction in the corn yield and corn production, and then also with respect to soybeans, we saw that take place again. They reduced the the national average yield to 123.4 bushels per acre for corn and 36.1 bushel per acre for soybeans. Both of those were lower than last month and actually a little bit lower than what the market was looking for those yields to be. That pulled down both the total production and the ending stocks as well. So we're back to this tight supply situation we were hoping to get out of with both these crops, but unfortunately due to the drought, it doesn't look like this is the year for that to happen.
And since then, we've seen the market kind of go a little bit both ways, but basically we still have high prices is the bottom line.
You're right. When the report came out, there was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. We saw corn hit a record level. Soybeans were in the same boat, kind of on those coattails, and since then it's really leveled off. But if you look at this, kind of take a step back and look at it from more than just a couple of days, both these markets have been pretty steady since about mid-July, when the knowledge of the fact that this drought is very serious was set in. They've both been trading fairly steadily over the past couple of weeks, and we are back in those. We're still in that same price level.
All right, we keep hearing about the need and possibility, of course, of having a ration corn, especially as time goes on here. That's still a concern, right? Especially when you think about ethanol and other components.
It's something that's going to have to take place, and that was reflected in the report as well. Feed use down, ethanol use down, exports all pulled back. The good thing is, especially on the livestock side, is there's just not a lot of cattle out there to feed, so I think that's going to help offset some of that feed for corn pressure, but the other two uses are still heavy in there.
As far as soybeans, I know they've had over the past few weeks a little more rain out in the Midwest, the chief concern as far as the drought. Are the beans able to recover any, or is there any idea what the impact may be?
If there's any recovery, it's going to be minimal, so I don't expect to see a tremendous amount of benefit from that.
For soybean producers, some analysts are advising a wait-and-see posture as far as making sales. Trader Alan Brugler does recommend farmers use some price protection. Brugler says he has done some three-way spreads and has got some 16-20 November puts as a price floor.
We've sold some $18 and higher calls against those. We've got some downside puts sold just so that if it does suddenly decide tomorrow, okay, we've done enough. Nobody sends you a notice when the market's going to top out. So we think good risk management is to have a little bit of protection in place. Don't need to go heavy on the cash sales here, but have some headline news protection.
Water levels continue to drop in the Mississippi River, which transports 60% of the nation's grain. This is snarling the movement of harvested crops. AgFacts.com reports that in some locations, such as Phillips County, Arkansas, grain is piled up on the ground outside elevators because of the backup. Low river levels are forcing shipping companies to only load their barges about 70 to 75% full. This week's trivia quiz is about peanuts. It is projected that Mississippi's crop is around 50,000 acres. That is a 233% increase over 1 year ago. Now our question, when was the last time the Mississippi peanut crop was this large? 1929, 1937, 1946, or 1961? I'll give you that answer in a few more minutes.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar in the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann reports the nation's hog herd is on the decline, while beef gets its own QR code. In the feature segment today, immigration reform is a controversial subject, but those who depend on hand labor to harvest fruits and vegetables say a guest worker program is needed.
Our tradition of learn by doing is creating new opportunities. My 4-H is involved with service projects in communities all across our state.
We develop leaders for Mississippi's future.
My 4-H is science and technology, everything from computers and robotics to exploring our environment.
My 4-H promotes active lifestyles and encourages physical fitness, healthy foods, and nutrition.
My 4-H is Mississippi 4-H.
Now, before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A tree identification workshop will be held Tuesday, August 28th. You'll learn the ways to identify trees, even if you can, excuse me, only find the leaves. The location is the Crossroads Regional Park, also known as Corinth City Park. The hours are 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Registration is $20, and you need to pre-register by August 23rd. The North Mississippi Peanut Field Day takes place Wednesday, August 29th. The location will be the Mark and John Agostinelli Farm. That's near Clarksdale. Follow the signs and take Monty Martin Road, then turn on to New Africa Road for the field day site. Many aspects of peanut management will be covered and a harvest demonstration will take place. The annual Delta Rice Luncheon takes place Friday, September 21st at the Sillers Coliseum at Delta State University in Cleveland. Hours are 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. There will be more than 300 rice dishes and tickets are $5 per person. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
Analysts seem to agree that some sow and hog herd liquidation in the U.S. is inevitable now because of high corn and soybean meal prices. Analyst John Roach says profitability in the pork sector is tough, and he's got the data to prove it.
We look at something that's called the livestock crush, which is the price of corn, the price of meal, and the price of hogs. It's at the lowest that our data has been in the last 9 years. The profitability in the hog business is really tough. And we've seen the sow slaughters pick up a little bit last week, was the biggest week of the year. We think it's going to pick up some more. We think that it's indicating maybe a little bit of liquidation, but the USDA in their forecast today said that the third quarter would average $5 a hundred better than the second quarter, but the fourth quarter we're going to lose $6 compared to where we get to in the third quarter. So we're concerned about the hog market longer term.
A well-known New York City restaurant has adopted QR codes as a way to connect customers and beef producers. The menus at Delmonico's in NYC now feature quick response codes by each selection. Customers can scan the code with their smartphones and obtain detailed information about the origin of the beef they want to order. This includes profiles of the producers and information about production practices. Meetingplace.com reports the program is made possible through Where Food Comes From. That is a retail and restaurant labeling program. Now a quick look at our trivia answer as we end the markets. C is the correct choice, 1946. And next week in the markets, analysis of the Cattle on Feed report.
In today's feature segment, immigration reform. Many of the nation's farming areas use some hand labor, but areas like Florida and California lead the nation. California's Central Valley is described by many as the nation's salad bowl. It takes many farm workers, mostly Mexicans, to harvest the food that feeds much of the nation. Many of the farms there want a guest workers program as part of immigration reform. They say the number of farm workers is falling, and without the workers, they can't plant. Market to Market's David Miller reports.
A good share of the nation's winter fruits and vegetables are grown on nearly 3 million acres of irrigated cropland in California's Central Valley. Water and labor have a unique relationship in California. Without the water, there are no crops. Without the labor, the crops would never leave the field. In 2009, reduced snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains caused a reduction in water to Central Valley farmers. The loss triggered an avalanche of unemployment that hit over 40% in some valley communities. Joe Del Bosque is a second-generation farmer from Fireball, California. Del Bosque idled more than a third of his 2,200 acres during the drought, diverting precious water from vine-ripened fruits and vegetables to his fruit and nut trees.
We've had those cutbacks for 20 years here in agriculture, so we understand them, and we've kind of learned to roll with the punches. It's not easy. If we had 2009 again in 2010, I may not be standing here because we could roll through 1 year but not through 2.
Besides trying to get and keep fresh water in the nation's salad bowl, the combination of a 50-year-old infrastructure and demand from 37 million citizens has placed a huge burden on the state's water supply. To combat cuts to Central Valley farmers, California voters will decide in the fall if $11.4 billion in improvements are going to be made to the Golden State's aging water system. But even if water allocations return to 100%, getting the fruits and vegetables out of the field remains a problem for Central Valley farmers. As immigration regulations have been tightened over the past few years, the number of people available to pick, process, and pack fruits and vegetables has declined.
Number one, closing the borders has affected our labor. Number two, fewer people are immigrating from south of the border into our area. And number three is we have a government that can't seem to get together an immigration reform plan, and we desperately need that. If we had a law here in California like Arizona, our fresh fruit and vegetable industry would be dead.
The Pew Hispanic Center, a nonpartisan research agency, says there are approximately 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States. The U.S. Census Bureau believes there are nearly 2 million undocumented workers in California. Some of them are helping bring in the nearly $40 billion worth of fruits and vegetables produced in California farm fields annually. While the work is labor-intensive, farmers in the region say they only need people for a limited time each year.
Our demands for labor out here are seasonal. There are huge demands in July, August, September. There's not enough people here to fill those demands. So we really need to have a guest worker program to allow people in legally, pick the crops, go back home. It's truly my belief that if we'd had this 30 or 40 years ago, we would not have the immigration problem that we have today.
Daniel Jackson is an 8th-generation farmer from Reedley, California. Jackson believes most of the immigrant workers he employs to pick and process the bounty from the family's 4,000 acres of fruit trees want to earn money and return to their homes across the border.
Our labor force that we have is predominantly, maybe 99% Hispanic. A lot of these people are coming from other countries, and we need immigration reform. We do, no doubt about it. There needs to be a lot of reform done for our labor force to be able to get up here to work legally, not take advantage of our tax system. Nobody likes that. And then to be able to go back home and stay there for 4 or 5 months and come back and work if they wanted to do that.
A recent CBS New York Times poll showed more than 60% of Americans felt illegal immigrants should either be allowed to apply for U.S. citizenship or stay as guest workers. Opinion polls aside, Jackson is among the farmers and ranchers in the Central Valley who have attempted to get unemployed American citizens in the area to help during labor shortages.
We have gone to the unemployment offices before and asked for workers. And one day we needed 300 workers to come out and pick zucchinis for us. And what ended up happening is they were very excited. They gave us all the applications. We were excited. The next day, when we were ready to pick, 10 people showed up. That's the reality of it. The reality of it is people that are unemployed or that are here as Americans do not want to do agriculture jobs, period.
Manuel Cunha is president of the Nice Farmers League, a San Joaquin Valley-based farmer advocacy group with 1,100 members.
Because U.S. workers will not work in this type of work. They refuse to work in it. The only way they're ever going to work in it, and God forbid that we go to a real depression of 1929.
During the Immigration Amnesty Program in the 1980s, the Nice Farmers League helped the federal government process undocumented workers.
So we're in a situation where we rely on our farm employees that are here in this state to have a job and to farm that land with our growers. So we need that labor. But to do that, we got to have the water. If I don't have the water, then I'm going to lose all those workers. And after a while, if I don't have enough water here all the time, they're going to leave. They're not coming back here. What happens to that production? To the tree fruit, the grapes, the almonds, the walnuts, the vegetables. They all begin to start to dry up. Because at the end of the day, I've got to have a workforce. And if I don't have a water system and I don't have an economic system of water, then I can't grow these crops. So then I might as well just turn this valley and other areas into urbanization and just build houses, because that's what I'm going to plan to do.
Cunha Jackson and Del Bosque are like many farmers in the region who believe the answer to the immigration problem in California requires cooperation among politicians on both sides of the aisle. But at the end of the day, Del Bosque and others will continue to focus on things close at hand.
Our goal is to feed the nation.
For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.
And you can watch this story again on California farm labor on our Farmweek website. That's farmweek.msucares.com. You can also watch Farmweek stories on YouTube and the Farmweek Facebook page. We'll also have a link to the Market to Market websites where you can see the story as well as read the script. That's farmweek.msucares.com. And Leighton, some forms of fruit and vegetable production, it takes hands. There is not machinery that can pick that and make it happen. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, you'll hear about a federal agency that's had an instrumental part in building America.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. We have 10 times as many people as in 1862, but it takes only 2% of us to feed the rest.
In southern gardening, the sun coleus. No longer does it have to hide in the shade. It can take the sun, and it does it with great colors. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.